Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Talking about selling a movie with just its title. Because that is actually what happened to me. I mean, when I first heard about this movie, I immediately had to look up a trailer. And I don't often watch trailers, especially not for movies that I will probably see eventually. But it definitely looked fun. Made me go a little bit like, do we really need another zombie horror comedy? But I guess we do. So let's check it out. The movie starts out with Blake of Workaholics fame just being Blake, working as a janitor at a laboratory. It mostly just serves as a super lazy setup to the whole zombie outbreak. But it's fun, you know. It sets the right tone of the movie and it provides us with some gory fun. Then the actual story starts with a shitty scout recruiting video. Gotta love that. We basically follow these three high school teenagers who are the only members in their scout club. Augie here, he's the only one that's still really into it. The other two are more concerned with banging chicks and think that being a scout isn't really gonna help that. Still, they all go on this scout camping trip, but the two fuckboys are planning on sneaking out during the night to go to this secret party they got invited to. But of course, since a zombie apocalypse just broke out, they're gonna run into a few obstacles on their way. It's a simple enough setup that provides the viewer with enough entertaining situations, so I'm not complaining. If anything, it's a little too simple, a little generic. You know, it just kind of follows the standard raunchy R-rated comedy formula with the standard raunchy R-rated comedy characters. These two guys, they're basically Michael Cera and Jonah Hill from Superbad. Which would make this guy Fogel, I guess? And that's not a complaint. I mean, I love Superbad. It's just, it all feels a little familiar. But hey. So let's continue. And with this being a horror comedy, let's take a look at the horror and the comedy. First, the comedy, since it first and foremost is a comedy. And this movie, it is pretty funny. The comedy ranges from somewhat subtle, you know, mostly just in the performances. For example, by the Scout Club leader, played by David Koechner. He's hilarious in this, and it sucks that he has a relatively small role. The same goes for Blake, you know, from the beginning. I would have loved to see more of them. And from subtle to absurd, like for example here, where they're singing Britney Spears songs with a zombie.
My loneliness is killing me, and
Yeah, I bet you didn't expect to see that, did you? And from absurd all the way to just flat, gross out comedy, like where one of the scouts is hanging out of a window holding onto a zombie penis. Yeah, I bet you didn't expect to see that either. So yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. It's definitely not like laugh out loud funny throughout, but the comedy is there and it's consistent. A little juvenile perhaps, but that's okay, you know. Sometimes you just want to switch off and be able to laugh at some dick jokes, right? Right? Or is that just me? Anyway, even though it is mostly a comedy, I would still label it as a horror comedy, so, well, let's take a look at the horror aspect. And that's obviously just the whole zombie apocalypse part of this movie, which provides us with some blood and gore. There's a bit of that here and there throughout the whole movie, but as you might expect, since it is a little formulaic, you know, the whole movie, it works towards an all-out grand finale zombie splatterfest, which is fun, but also a little disappointing. Mostly because it takes place at the secret party that I mentioned earlier, where, because of all the lighting, it's a little hard to follow all the action. Which sucks, because this obviously is the movie's big set piece. The gore, it's cool though. It's a mix of both practical effects and CGI, and while I usually despise CG gore, most of the times it works pretty well in this movie, as they use it in a sort of stylized way. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I really don't know how else to say it. In general, it's just a fun movie, you know. It's very watchable, it's entertaining. I even liked most of the acting. You know, the three main guys, the scouts, they were fun. At one point they team up with this cocktail waitress girl whose acting wasn't all that great. I feel like she was mostly there for eye candy. But I ain't complaining. And then there is this somewhat forced, unnecessary romantic subplot. It really feels like the writers were just, you know, like going down the checklist, even down to the somewhat pop music soundtrack. Which some songs I thought were pretty cool. You know, the nothing to something, like in a loving, and makes me feel cool. So if, like me, you love zombie movies and these kind of raunchy R-rated Judd Apatow type of comedies, you should definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed. It's a little generic, like I don't think that it'll be a major classic, but you know, it's like this. You know what to expect, and that's exactly what you're gonna get with this movie. And sometimes that's just exactly the right movie to pop in. Recommended.